Imagine if every roll of the dice at your table didn't just whisper success or fear, but showered the scene with confetti, pushed your character into the spotlight, and even gave the DM these little chaos tokens that they could use against you later. In Daggerheart, every roll adds hope or fear and moves the story forward. The game uses two 12-sided dice that they call Duality Dice. It basically adds some crunchy math and dramatic flair, the same way a bard blends power chords with those jazz hands. Today, we're diving into how Duality Dice work, why they turbocharge storytelling, the math behind those critical moments, and how they stack up against classic D20 and those comfy cozy 2d6 dice pool games. Now, when you're trying something risky in Daggerheart, you roll two 12-sided dice called Duality Dice. One of those dice stands for hope and the other die stands for fear. So you need two different dice for this that need to look different so that you can tell them apart. The book recommends using dice of two different colors, two different sizes, or even two different patterns, whatever floats your boat. Now, whichever one of those dice is the higher die on a roll sets the scene's mood. You're still going to add those two dice together and add any modifier, and it gets compared to a difficulty number that's set by the GM. This will determine whether you succeeded or failed at what you were trying to do, but also how the mood of the scene goes. So there are 5 different ways that these dice can land, and we're going to go over all of them. You can succeed with hope, succeed with fear, fail with hope, fail with fear, or get a critical success. Now, a success with hope is amazing. It means you beat the difficulty set by the GM and the hope die was higher than the fear die. So as a player, you get to do this thing where you now take a hope point that can be noted on your character sheet. And there is a cap to how much hope you can have. You only have so many hope slots available. Picture a victory pose and a burst of optimism. Now, a failure with hope is when the hope die is higher than the fear die, but when you've added them together with modifiers, you still didn't meet the difficulty that the GM required. You missed the goal, but you still gained a hope token to be banked for later. And you can save these hope tokens up to turn the tide of the story. Now let's go over what happens if your fear die is higher. You can roll a success with fear. Your fear die is higher than your hope die, but when you've added them together and your modifier, you still succeeded at your task because you rolled higher than the GM's difficulty. So you end up doing what you wanted to do, but in this case, you don't get any hope and the GM gets a fear token to use later. The next option is failure with fear. This is the toughest one. This means you didn't succeed at what you wanted to do. Your totals came up too low and your fear die was higher, so the GM still gets a fear token to bank. Now the story is tilting towards a little more danger. And finally, the best one, that critical success. Now in Daggerheart, critical successes happen whenever you get doubles on the dice. So that's double 1, double 2, double 3, and so on. You get a lot more opportunities for crits in this game because of that system. Now, this counts as a success with hope, no matter even if the fear die was higher or your total didn't add up. It's because it's a critical. You succeeded and you got a hope token, but you also get to clear a stress, which is another mechanic in the game that we're going to go over in a future video. Just to make sure you don't miss any of these future videos, you're going to want to go ahead and click the subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when all our new videos are posted. Now, if you were rolling an attack roll and you got this crit, you're also going to do extra damage as well that we'll go over in a combat video. Hope tokens help the players, but fear tokens help the GM add new problems to the story. Now, those critical moments also feel great at the table, so let's get into the math on how these work. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, a crit is when you roll a 20 on the 20-sided die. That is a 1 in 20 chance of happening, or 5% chance. In Daggerheart, remember, that happens when you roll doubles. So you have 12 opportunities to roll doubles out of 144 possible number combinations on the 2 dice. This actually bumps up your success rate to a little over an 8% chance of rolling a crit. This means these big moments happen a little more often, keeping that energy high. And if you want to get really nerdy about the math, I believe they said it makes a bell curve peak at around 13, so even your odds of succeeding on regular rolls is a little bit higher. But don't worry, there's still plenty of opportunity for the GM to throw in some chaos. This makes most results land in that pretty good but not world-ending zone, and it allows for the GM to have a lot more yes but and yes and options. Think, yes, you managed to vault over that ravine, but you also skidded on some gravel making a little noise, and now all those little goblins on the other side are looking right at you. Adventurers, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, give us a like. It certainly helps more adventurers find us. These hope points you're able to spend readily and regain readily too, so you don't have to worry about saving them up for a big huge moment. You're going to be replenishing them all the time, which allows the players the opportunities to act really boldly and provide some really great narrative to the story. Now, DMs are encouraged to keep track of their fear with some tokens at the table so that players can actually see that pile of tokens build up, and then you know, oh boy, something bad's gonna happen soon. Look at how much fear the GM has to use against us. So what are some of the things that you can do with these hope and fear points? Hope points can be used to help your ally. That costs 1 hope point. It's essentially giving them advantage, and for advantage in this game, they get to add a d6 to their roll. You can spend 1 hope point to activate one of your experiences, another mechanic that will add to your die roll that we'll go over in a future video. You can initiate a tag team roll with other players to do some really amazing combo moves. This costs 3 hope. And finally, players are going to have different character abilities that can be activated with different amounts of hope. Now, the fear tokens sit over with the GM, right? So they can be used to interrupt the players and make a GM move that costs 1 fear. Make an additional GM move and essentially keep their turn going for a fear point. Use an adversary's feature. This means activating like a special ability that one of the monster has, and the cost of these activations varies of different amounts of fear depending on how severe it is. They can also use fear points to activate things in the environment as well. In this game, environments have stat blocks just like creatures do. And just like the characters, adversaries also have experiences that can be activated with fear points. Having this visible fear token economy makes the stakes easier to track. If you've watched any of Critical Role's new Age of Umbra series, you'll notice that Matt has little markers on the top of his GM screen that he slides back and forth to indicate how much fear he's banked up. So players can spend hope to tilt the scene in their favor, but the GM can spend fear to raise the stakes. If you're new here and we're first meeting, I'm Kristen, and this is Kristen's Epic Adventures. We go over rules breakdowns, tips, tricks, and sometimes unboxings and reviews. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss upcoming videos. So essentially, with crits coming in at about 8% of the time instead of 5%, the dramatic highlights happen more often in this game. This really helps to keep the session moving, but not so often that it doesn't seem normal. That means you'll have a dramatic flourish about once every 12 rolls instead of about once every 20. They're rare enough to keep that ta-da feeling, yet also common enough that you won't grow a wizard's beard waiting. Now, all these hope and fear tokens going back and forth means that the emotional seesaw never stops squeaking. Now, because hope and fear points literally ride shotgun on every single roll, the probability literally fuels some of the pacing in this game. This fountain of hope literally invites daring heroics from the players, while a looming pile of fear tokens hangs overhead like finale music in a season-ending cliffhanger. In Daggerheart, the dice aren't just saying what happened, they're also hinting at what's gonna happen next. So how does Daggerheart's Duality Dice measure up to other systems? It combines the familiar crunch of a d20 with the narrative flow of a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Then it adds in a visible resource economy that shows stakes on every roll. Players are literally buying more momentum or softening bad luck with their hope tokens, while the fear tokens give the GM the ability to escalate the stakes. Now, in the Daggerheart book on page 6, they've mentioned a bunch of different touchstones that were some of their inspiration for developing this game. See if some of these things resonate with you and you might enjoy trying out Daggerheart. For other TTRPGs, they've mentioned 13th Age, Apocalypse Keys, City of Mist, Dishonored, D&D, Flea Mortals, Lady Blackbird, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Slug Blaster, games like that, and there's a lot more too. They mentioned certain series of books like Lord of the Rings, The Wheel of Time, A Song of Fire and Ice. Even certain films and TV shows like The Dark Crystal, The Lord of the Rings, The Witcher, Guardians of the Galaxy. They've also mentioned some video games like Elder Scrolls, Dragon Age, and Outriders, and Borderlands. They also have some special appreciation for certain gaming systems that inspired them as well. If you've enjoyed the Genesis system from Fantasy Flight is what inspired the Duality Dice. They mentioned the Cypher system by Monty Cook and GM Intrusions. They also mentioned the Advantage system in Dungeons & Dragons, backgrounds and experience mechanics from 13th Age. Blades in the Dark help shape the narrative flow of the game. And even things like the way the enemies have different types and the way they were managed came from things like D&D and Flea Mortals as well. So they definitely gave a shout out to all the different games that help inspire Daggerheart, where they were able to take so many different types of gaming systems that they really enjoyed and kind of combine them together. If you think any of those are some systems or games or TV shows or films that excite you and spark your interest, you're going to want to check out Daggerheart. If you have any more questions or comments about the Duality Dice and how they work, make sure you drop them in the comments below. Now you're going to want to watch one of the videos on the next screen. Go ahead and click on that and I'll meet you there. Until then, may your dice be kind, your stories be legendary, and may your games be filled with just the right amount of sparkle.